Never forget another password and keep all your credentials secure by signing up for a free account today. They took her hometown and they killed her husband. She learned how to fight and how to use deadly weapons. She signed up to fight in the Soviet army after donating the money to build her very own tank. Avenging her husband's death to the Nazis in the Second World War, she fearlessly went into battle and took names. It sounds like a plot to a dramatic Hollywood movie, but the story of this extraordinarily brave Soviet woman is historic fact and not fictional fodder. She's one of the toughest, most badass women who ever lived, and today we'll take a close look at her. In this episode of the Infographics Show, Nazi killer Maria Oktyabrskaya. Ukrainian Maria Oktyabrskaya was born to a peasant family on August 16, 1905. She was one of 10 children, so she must have learned a bit about fighting before her higher calling came later in life. Before the Second World War, she worked as a canner and then as a telephone operator, and in 1925 she married a Soviet army officer. That's when her interest in matters of a military nature began. She was trained as a nurse and became involved with the Military Wives' Council. She learned how to use weapons and drive vehicles. During the Eastern Front War, much of her hometown was destroyed by the Nazis, and she was evacuated to Tomsk in Siberia, where she learned in 1943 of her husband's death in battle with the Nazis near Kiev 2 years before. She took the news badly and decided to sell all of her possessions in order to donate towards the manufacturing of a tank aptly named Fighting Girlfriend for the Red Army. Maria wrote a hopeful letter to Soviet leader Stalin. It read like this: "My husband was killed in action defending the motherland. I want revenge on the fascist dogs for his death and for the deaths of the Soviet people tortured by the fascist barbarians. For this purpose, I've deposited all my personal savings, 50,000 rubles, to the National Bank in order to build the tank Fighting Girlfriend and to send me to the front line as a driver of said tank." To her surprise, Stalin agreed. And after taking part in a 5-month training program, Maria was, in fact, part of the war effort. She had somewhat of an edge on her fellow fighters, as most tank drivers and mechanics were sent straight out to the front line with little or no training. She was posted in the 26th Guards Tank Brigade as a driver and mechanic in September 1943 and began fighting battles in Smolensk. In her first battle, the 38-year-old widow took out some 30 Nazis and destroyed an anti-tank gun. She became accustomed to disregarding passive orders during battle to jump out of her tank and repair damages caused by gunfire. Due to her bravery on the battlefield, Maria was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and her willingness to show courage both inside and outside of the tank drew admiration from her military peers. She was naturally accepted into the ranks by her comrades, and as her reputation grew, the Russian media caught on to the story. She became part of the communist propaganda machine as something of a poster girl. She participated in what is thought to be the largest tank battle ever fought in human history, the Battle of Kursk. She swerved and evaded enemy fire while positioning her tank in a fashion that did the most damage to Hitler's forces. Maria was driven by the death of her husband and the destruction of her hometown, and would not rest until she had eliminated every Nazi in her sights on the front line. She was fearlessly moving forward in her Fighting Girlfriend machine of war. In November 1943, the Soviet forces took the town of Novoye Selo at night, and Maria's reputation rose once more as a fearless Red Army force to be reckoned with. She could drive a tank as well as anybody, repair that same tank, fire guns, and toss grenades. She was, in short, a war machine. In January 1944, she fought again at night as part of the Leningrad-Novgorod offensive and heroically powered forward in her T-34, destroying machine gun nests and a self-propelled gun. Her tank was struck by a German anti-tank shell, and Maria leaped from her tank to undergo repairs. She repaired the tank, but was struck in the head by small arm fire and was transported to a military field hospital near Kiev, where she remained in a coma for 2 months before finally dying on March 15. She was subsequently made a hero of the Soviet Union for her bravery on the battlefield. Her memory lives on fondly in the hearts of the people for being one of the most badass female warriors of all time. And while she's a part of people's memory, what isn't is the hundreds of passwords we all have to memorize. And these passwords are getting more complex and harder to come up with and remember every day. Don't be one of the people who is constantly having to reset their password. Try Dashlane completely free for 30 days and discover how much easier your password life can be. To make the lives of the staff at the Infographics Show easier, we've all decided to use Dashlane. Dashlane is a password manager that makes it easy for you to control your digital identity. Whether you're great with computers or not, Dashlane is extremely easy to use. Anytime you have to come up with a new password, you can use Dashlane to generate a super secure one. The security of Dashlane is awesome, but the autofill is what makes it so much fun to use. You'll never have to log into another website again. Dashlane